Today's episode is brought to you by the Vegas Beer Guys.
Everything sequel contains explicit language. And why the fudge not, you melon farmer?
Hello and welcome to the Everything Sequel Podcast. This is the Bad News Bears edition. We're ranking today, folks. My name is Michael Shantz. I'm from the How Dare You Awards. Joining me, the man stepping up to the plate to deliver you a line, Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions. Hit him, Tom.
Why don't you shut your redneck mouth, you cruddy ass?
God damn it. You found the least offensive one to start.
That was exactly what I was going to say. This is the point in the Bad News Bears in Breaking Training where I became grateful that Tanner's slurs had shifted from racist to regionally based insults.
Don't leave out the white people, please.
Yeah. Can you imagine, like, when you're writing these characters for the first time and, you know, you're tossing around ideas as a writer and saying, every one of these kids needs a gimmick. What can we give Tanner? And then someone in the room puts their hand up and says, hate speech?
Racist?
Imagine that. And then everyone agrees. I guess that's the part where everyone agrees.
You know what I'm loath to admit is that, I mean, when I was a kid, probably that age, these are not things I would say, but if another kid said them,
yes.
You know, in 1977, you almost couldn't help but laugh, and the reason you would is because he's not supposed to be saying it. And I think that's enough for Hollywood at the time.
Yeah,
that's why it's in the movie.
And it's part and parcel of the way that the film is trying to break boundaries.
Yeah.
By, one side of that coin is having a more diverse cast, and then the other side of it is having children in movies do things that
they should
just
not.
Which were inappropriate for kids to do, both with words and actions.
Yeah.
And that's very clear. That's clearly the project of these films, so you have to put it in that context. It's not that you have to let them off the hook, but you certainly have to understand the intent of what they're doing, and that for them it's sort of two sides of the same coin, I think.
But that's the question that I think confronts you when you watch these two movies, because normally when we see movies from this time, we'll bring up the misogyny or the racism. Yeah. And then the refrain will be, I don't blame the movie for it. I blame the time it was made.
Yeah.
But with these two movies, I think you're confronted with, do we have to blame the movie?
Yeah.
It
is more, this is interesting because I was surprised that how inclined I am to treat these two films separately.
Mm-hmm.
And not to generalize about anything that applies to both of them.
Yeah,
and I really wasn't expecting that. One of these films was much more racist than I expected, and the other one was far less racist than I expected.
Yeah, exactly right.
And I don't think it'll be any surprise to anyone who has read the titles of these movies which movie I expected to be more racist.
Of course. Yes.
But once you get past the animated title sequence, it's not that bad. I mean, it's more racist assumptions and stereotyping.
Sure.
But there's not much intentional racism as there is in Breaking Training. I mean, by a mile.
It just doesn't make you go, as much as Breaking Training does.
And you're prepared for it.
And you think, you think that you're going to want to hide under your cushions,
especially after Yeah, especially just having just seen Breaking Training. You think,
when you've seen Breaking Training and you know you're going to Japan,
exactly.
You think, oh, we're
it's
fucked.
Like, so we got no chance, right?
I'm so scared.
And the first few minutes of the movie kind of confirms those expectations, but the rest of the movie defies them to a large extent.
Right.
So, I mean, to me, what was fascinating about these two movies is that is how different they are.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're both working to a pretty rigid formula, and yet
there's a narrow scope for both of them.
That's a very good way of putting it.
Yeah.
And yet they read entirely differently.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a lot of reasons for that, and we'll talk about it as we go through the movies. But to me, it all seems to come back to one of these movies. So both these movies are made in the late 70s,
mm-hmm.
and one of these movies is looking backwards to the 1970s. The other one is looking forward to the 1980s.
Yeah. Okay.
One of these movies is sort of still in 5 Easy Pieces mode. Right, like character-led, bleak,
yes,
gritty storytelling. The other one is already figuring out what the 80s sitcom version of the story is.
Absolutely.
And
one is starting to feel like Cannonball Run for Little League.
Yeah, and I mean, there was a Bad News Bears sitcom, right?
Oh, I don't think I remember that.
I believe there's
I'd
a
have
TV
to look it
series.
up. Was there?
I think so. You can vamp for a second, and I'll.
All right. Well,
I
ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about the Bad News Bears series. We have to rank and declare these two movies. We've got the Bad News Bears in Breaking Training, and we have the Bad News Bears Go to Japan.
That is correct. Yeah. And
did I vamp enough?
No. What something? So this is the there was a TV series. The problem
when was the series?
This is like a IMDb seems to have a black hole where this series is concerned because there wasn't even a picture associated with it.
Huh.
Oh no, that's happening.
Oh,
okay,
so
maybe there isn't a TV series.
So it's about to start.
Yeah. I mean, take that with a grain of salt. That's why there's no picture.
Huh.
And I guess that is just because so much of it crosses over with the idea of a sitcom.
I'm sure somebody in an office said, we can't do it on television. We won't be able to include the racism.
Certainly not like network television. I guess you could have done early.
That's all there was, Tom.
Well,
that's all there was.
By the time you get to the early 80s, you've got the kind of cable option. But
you're getting close to HBO, yeah.
Yeah, but yes, that's all. That it would have been. Yeah, there's no way you. But again, you could have done like a MASH where you kind of kept the themes but lost.
After MASH?
Well, no, MASH went from a pretty explicit movie to a a radical yet somewhat network friendly TV show.
Mm-hmm.
And
I thought you meant the after show.
The after MASH? No, I meant the transition.
The show itself.
Yeah. And I have a lot to say. Interestingly enough, I have a lot to say about
MASH.
Leaving gap. Something that I think of when I think of the MASH TV show, leaving gaps for a laughter track, which both these films seem to be doing.
Right.
And watching it on my own, on TV.
Not laughing a lot.
Not laughing. You really notice those pauses. You really notice the holds.
Hold it, kids. Hold it.
But again, I have a lot to say about that as well.
All right. Well, obviously we're here to rank and declare.
Yes.
how big a chore was this for you?
Well, the word "bad" is in both of the titles, so I feel like they're already leading. They're already leading me down a dark alley.
Yeah.
See, so this relates back to our last series, the Omen series, because you know, at the final hurdle, I learned that Omen 4 was a Canadian made-for-TV movie, and I was forced to reevaluate it with that criteria. And I have a similar struggle here, where my instinct is that neither of these are very good films, but then I'm trying to sort of contextualize it within the project.
Mm-hmm.
And that complicates things a little bit. What am I judging success on?
Well, I mean, that's the question we have to ask ourselves every time we do
every
this,
single
right?
time, but it's different.
But it could, like you said, because you're
every
taking
single
into
time.
context.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It changes from series to series.
Neither of these films are shooting for the moon.
Oh no.
So
I take it you hadn't seen either one.
So I hadn't seen either one. I'd never seen the original Bad News Bears.
Oh wow, okay.
Nor the remake with
Billy Bob
Thornton. I've seen that. And so when you mentioned it, I thought great, because I love the series where we start with the sequels and then try and work back and I try to figure out what the original film was like. And I also, one of my favorite film stars is Walter Matthau. And then I get to the beginning of Breaking Training and find out that he is nowhere to be found in either of these two movies.
He will not be in that movie.
And that basically everything you need to know about the original movie is self-evident from watching these two. So I was kind of...
I'm going to disagree with you there.
Okay, great. I'm glad that's the case.
Because you hadn't seen it, we'll talk about it. But
fantastic.
There's some weird shit going on.
And then we can
at the
see
beginning
it,
of both of these movies. But
you don't have to talk about it too much, because we will eventually watch it. And the reboot on our Patreon.
Oh, yeah.
If, the world lasts that long. That's...
Don't go bleak. Yeah. Don't go bleak so early. Come on.
Well, it's like... it's all, in a way, it's optimistic, because that's assuming that that's the variable. Not that we won't go on that long, but that the world won't go on that long. So in a way, I'm being overly optimistic about our chances.
I think what was a bit alarming in watching these movies, one more than the other, but what was a little bit alarming was feeling like we've gone back to a world where so much of this is what people in America have missed about America.
Well, being able to say and do the things that the kids do.
Just anything you fucking want. Doesn't matter.
But it's sort of it's a weird split between, like, childhood fantasy and, it's the child's idea of what the adult world is and vice versa.
Yeah, right.
So presumably it's not children writing these films. So the adults...
there are times where it really feels like it, though, Tom.
But, it's adults assuming what kids like and do.
Yeah.
But it's also, trying to work from the child's perspective as, like, what would I do if I was... how old are these kids supposed to be? I know, I don't want to ask such a difficult question so early on in the episodes.
I mean, I would say that they could be anywhere between 10 and 15, 16.
I hadn't even consciously sort of, like, addressed it in my notes, but in the back of my mind what was going on is, like, every time I see a different kid, they look like they're in a different demographic.
Yeah, right. Yes.
But anyway, so that's a kind of weird, that's a sort of weird split where it's kind of working in both directions.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. There's certainly there's not many kids films like it anymore.
Well,
and I guess the point is that there never were, because this is this
Maybe.
is the antidote to that. But now we don't make these films anymore, so it's a weird time capsule in the middle of two like tendencies of children's filmmaking.
Sure. Because I can't think of a lot of other movies. I mean, you have the extremes like Children of the Corn, where you dip into the horror.
I don't think that
when
counts.
you dip into the horror genre, but you don't have a lot of film. You know, it's like like we know Dennis the Menace and those kind of things, but
yeah, and
it's
just hard.
These seem different unto themselves.
You're right. I think you can't think. I can't think of any other examples that don't eventually sort of diverge into cutesy or children's horror. Or horror featuring children, I guess we should say.
Your choices usually are Children of the Corn or The Mighty Ducks.
So
that's it.
So this is the lukewarm water in between.
This is somewhere in between.
But that's why I struggle, I think, because I sort of think that these two films answer a lot of the criticisms that I have of cinema that features children. And yet I can't tell if they're entirely capitalizing on what they set out to do.
Can you speak to those? I mean, what do you mean? What are some of your criticisms?
Well, just what
generally.
Yeah, I mean, that they are overly sanitized and don't offer, not necessarily
an honest view,
accurate view of childhood, but something that is, at least a meaningful, somewhat authentic account of childhood.
No, I agree with that.
I
mean, when I think back on my childhood, there weren't, you weren't hurling racial epithets, but we certainly cursed a lot and gave each other a lot of shit. And it was all fair game when I was a kid,
Yeah.
And this movie at least harkens back to that.
But that's treated differently in each film.
No, yeah, I agree. So that's what I was going to say, because when I look at these two movies, I see two different movies. In one movie, I see a vehicle mostly for the children. In the other, I see a vehicle for a star.
Tony Curtis. Yes, absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. No, it's the Tony Curtis show featuring the Bad News Bears.
Right.
Again, it's not as off-putting.
I am astounded that Tony Curtis is in this movie, by the way. I asked you if you'd seen these movies. Let me tell you, I was so sure that I had seen both of these movies, and then having watched them, I realized, oh, no. I'd seen Breaking Training. I never saw the Bad News Bears go to Japan.
And my only foreknowledge of the Bad News Bears Goes to Japan was it appearing on a number of worst sequels of all time lists.
Yeah, right.
And so I'll go as far as saying I don't understand that at all. I mean, maybe just people haven't seen as many sequels as we have. When the people writing those lists, they're not deep enough in the hole. Maybe it's that.
Yeah, but you got to admit that it's a bit of an odd duck.
I don't feel like this is an abject failure. I think people. I doubt whether the people putting the film on the list have actually seen the film. I think they're going off the title because
maybe. I'll tell you this.
I was expecting it to be far worse than it was.
Yeah.
Far worse.
I started off thinking that it might be as bad as that.
Yes.
But it started winning me over
at
a certain point.
I agree.
I must say. To my great shock, I'll also add.
Well, I mean, it's also about how the two films work together in tandem, because
right,
whether it's conscious or not, this feels like a rebuttal to the other. The sort of the virulent racism of the first is called out in the second, and that. I mean, I really didn't expect that to happen. I didn't expect for them to have answers to their own representational problems. But occasionally they do, and I mean, we'll get into it at the time, but I was when we get there, but I was so scared about how they were going to handle, obviously being in Japan, but also the issue of World War II.
Right.
And I don't think I've got anything but praise to say about how sensitively they handled that.
There's a lot of shit going on in that movie that I think, for a movie in 1978,
yeah,
there's not a single subtitle in that movie.
Yeah.
That's fascinating to me. Steven Spielberg was just, kind of patting himself on the back last year for that sort of thing in Hollywood.
Now you're taunting me. You're trying to get me to say something bad about Spielberg.
Hard to resist, friend.
It is in that context, I'll tell you. You wanted me to say he's always patting himself on the back about something. Not what he should actually be patting himself on the back for, which is having made Temple of Doom. But I'm not going to say that.
I think it's a little dark. That's what he keeps saying. And Harrison Ford. Yeah, I think we went a little dark on that one.
And George Lucas does.
Oh, you mean with the ripping out of the hearts? Okay.
George Lucas doesn't understand what they're talking about.
I know.
So, yeah, well, I absolutely, and not even, I mean, there's on superficially, and I was waiting for the moment where, American films do what they've been doing since the end of World War II, which is to sort of demonize the Japanese and their conduct during the war.
Mm-hmm.
And the opposite kept happening, and it really threw me. It really honestly threw me. Sometimes I felt like I was getting a more balanced view of Japan than Lost in Translation, and that fucking freaked me out.
Well, I was also, I have to admit, I was completely thrown by the end of that movie by how sweet one relationship became.
Yes, definitely.
I mean,
I know exactly.
We'll get there.
Well, I know exactly.
But I know you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and there's a moment that made me in that relationship that made me tear up.
Yeah. And you don't expect that going into the Bad News Bears go to Japan.
This is all coming from left field, and I believe that's a baseball term. Correct?
You're not far off.
Oh, okay. Listen, both these films made me wish I knew the rules of baseball better than I do.
I'm sure. I'm not sure the movies know the rules of baseball, but I guess it doesn't matter too much.
As an outsider to the game, I can definitely tell that
Yes.
they don't understand the protocol for calling off a game.
No, not at all. It's amazing. Oh,
But
that's great.
so, I guess we can ask the question. This is an introductory episode. Are these sports movies?
So, I mean, what's funny is that because there's so many notes that I have where you say something like, an hour and 18 minutes in, we're finally seeing baseball, that kind of thing.
But it's the opposite in Goes to Japan.
But in Japan, you're like,
too
wow,
much.
we're getting to the baseball quick.
Too much sports, if anything.
And then suddenly, of course, it disappears for an hour. So...
Well, I mean, we don't have to answer it now. I just wanted to. I was asking you in case you had a definitive answer either way. But the fact that you don't, You're in exactly the same position as me. I'm like, I don't.
No, of course.
I know these films think of themselves as sports movies, but I don't know if they actually are.
I'm not sure they're right.
No. And
I mean, so much of both of these movies feels like, get every kid in frame. Just go, kids. Do something. And that's as far as they got,
That would explain a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Especially how slow the reaction shots in these films are. It's like I don't know if they're holding for laughter or the kids take a few seconds to warm up, before they realize the camera's on them.
Hello, editor. You can cut some of that if you'd like.
But well, we'll get into it. We'll get into it when we get in the episodes. but I'll headline it now. I think they are purposefully leaving spaces for uproarious audience laughter that they think is coming. I think that's part of it.
But doesn't that feel like they're resting on the laurels of the previous, of the first movie too?
Yeah, I mean, partly that's
because how
that's
hilarious
historical.
Is what they've written.
No, it's not very funny. I mean, I would say there's funny. So I think there's funny stuff in Goes to Japan. Most of it's actually Tony Curtis's design. Breaking Training, I don't know if they're going for upsetting, but that's the note they hit pretty much every time.
I mean,
that's why I go back to Five Easy Pieces. It's like the comedy is tinged with the sadness of that movie.
Right. But I also think that movie is going for something different.
Oh, I know. But it comes
that we
out,
recognize
it all comes out in the wash
that we recognize as character development. There's parts they're going for something.
Yeah.
And you could say that about Japan, but I don't think it ever reaches to the point of being earned.
Not in Japan. No, Japan. I don't think. Like I say, I think it's the good. It's the Goodfellas painting. One dog goes one way, the other goes the other.
I like it.
and this guy's saying, "What do you want from me?" This is two movies. One is looking back at movies from the 70s. The other one's looking forward to what the movies of the 80s will be. So you can't compare them directly to each other, which is what we have to do. And these two films make that project surprisingly hard, given that because you think they're going to be identical.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I found very difficult in, maybe not so much in ranking, but declaring, because one of these movies upset me more, but I think is a better movie.
I think we're on the same page, yeah.
Okay.
And I think it's the kind of the legacy of the movies that they've inherited that make it seem better than it actually is.
Right. Yeah.
But if you ask me which one I enjoyed more, I might have a different answer for you.
Really?
I think so. I mean, what are these films? I mean, what are these films supposed to be? But just good, honest, dishonest entertainment.
You caught yourself.
One movie goes one way, the other goes the other way. One's honest, one's dishonest. And
this
saying,
guy
what do you want
in the
from
middle
me?
saying, "Hey, what do you want from me?"
And Tony Curtis is in the middle saying, "What do you want from me?"
Yep. All right. Well, we procrastinated enough, I assume.
I want to hear So this is I guess you will probably think a rarity. I just want to hear from you because I need context on this. I need another viewpoint.
Okay.
To rationalize what I'm thinking, because what I'm thinking is all over the place.
Yeah.
Because I want to judge these movies fairly for what they are and what they're trying to do, but I also don't want our standards to slip.
That's the thing, though. I mean,
I don't want
we already went through
people
this.
Quoting this back to me 5 years from now, saying, "Remember when you said?"
See, but I'm already in the hot pot. I mean, I already said Omen 4, good movie.
Yeah,
but
so but even though I disagreed, your rationale was sound.
Okay, good.
More sound than I gave it credit for at the time, and
excellent.
I'm having the same dilemma with these movies. It's like I can see when it's so clear what they're trying to be, it makes it harder to take pot shots at it, right? In the same way that we do loftier movies that we've done that are aiming much higher than this.
I think one movie is a bit clearer on what it wants to be. I could be wrong.
I don't know. I never had that problem watching these movies.
Okay.
I said I don't think they're failing at what they're doing. What they're doing is very different, and both of them totally different from what they expected.
Yeah.
But I don't think internally they're struggling.
I
don't know.
One of them did not win me over until late in the movie. So, take that for what it's worth. You'll find out in a moment.
I'd say that about both of them.
Is that right?
It took me a good hour in both of them to understand.
Actually, yeah, you might be right.
Where I was supposed to be as the audience in relation to what was going on, and when I did, it went down a lot easier.
Okay, I mean, one movie I could recognize as a movie with recognizable things that I understood:
a middle,
characters,
and an end. Yeah.
a plot, a beginning, a middle, an end, a character arcs, and of course, within that was terrible racism going on, which was really hard to swallow, which was the you know,
called out and isn't redressed.
Yeah, it's never called out, and that was the thing that made it hard, where I thought, wow, I think this is a better movie, but I'm not, like you said, I'm not sure I enjoyed it as much.
Yeah.
But I recognize it as a movie. So for me, coming into this, I thought, I don't think I can do anything other than say at the top of my list is The Bad News Bears and Breaking Training.
And what I'd add to that by saying, this comes from a tradition of movies that you're not supposed to outwardly enjoy in the same way you might expect to enjoy a movie about a child baseball team.
That might be true.
There's a bleak worldview attached to it, which comes from 1970s cinema.
Sure, yeah.
That means that...
But that didn't, you know, I don't know. I thought a lot of that was also wrapped up in one particular character arc that felt kind of after-school special, but again, I recognize it as...
You mean reuniting
an arc in a movie. Yeah.
I don't see. Maybe this is the father bias as well. So that was what those parts of the movie. There was nothing artificial for me in the all the artifice of the movie dissipated in those scenes between Kelly and his dad. It never felt. None of it felt contrived.
But no, I agree.
Okay,
that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Even Carmen's sort of arc from fantasist to actually reasonable player was, I find, quite compelling. I think they picked the right kid to follow through the movie. Anyway, I agree with you.
I got a lot to say about him, and not all of it might be fair.
No.
I don't, so... but we'll get to it when we get to it.
More diversity does not mean less racism.
No, not at all.
And I think Carmen is the perfect example of that.
Oh my gosh, the one thing about that movie is it's like a compulsion. It's equal opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not going to leave anybody alone. We're talking about peace pipes. They're talking about little people. They're talking like nobody is left unchecked. Nobody. Italians taking it right on the chin.
What if it turned out that Tanner had Tourette's and we were just all marginalizing him for the...
Yeah.
Because you could absolutely, with a few lines of dialogue, you could make that subplot happen.
Yeah, with a few lines of dialogue,
minutes of the film finding out about the characters. So
with a few lines of dialogue, you could also find out why he's not going to Japan. They choose not to do that.
I think it's very. I think that's clear.
And all I had to think was, we have to get rid of him because we don't want this. We want a nice movie.
That to me, that choice stands up, right? That is the first. The first thing we do is Tanner cannot step foot in another country because look how he acts to people who are American.
But he is a person that was in the first two movies. You'd think they'd at least just say, like they do in Breaking Training, he broke a leg.
I got so many questions about it. Again, two films totally different. One is fixated on characters that aren't in the movie. The other refuses to recognize their existence.
Right.
Maybe.
All right.
So maybe when they were designing Tanner, when they put the character up on the whiteboard, they sort of like his two defining characteristics: hate speech, and he's kind of in love with Looper. In a way that none of us understand. Breaking
Right.
Training, I think is a better all-round movie, so I'm going to put it.
Okay.
And I guess from what you're saying, quite a departure as a sequel as well from Bad News Bears.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Look, we have surrogates. We're doing, you know what I mean?
Well,
so
for half the film.
Yeah.
Actually, no, we have 3 different surrogates stringing the film together.
Mm-hmm. But what's strange is it's very hard. These sequels don't seem to care, by the way.
Yeah,
but
we
it's very
care far
difficult.
more about this than they do.
No,
Which is why it's so hard to criticize on these grounds.
It's the Rocky problem, right? It's hard to
You lost me
turn
at problem.
Rocky. It's hard to turn Rocky into the underdog in Rocky 3, and so when you have a first movie in which they got so good they got to the championship game, and then in this movie they gotta suck again. So it's how do they suck again?
I think they have.
And apparently,
I think they have
all the ways they suck.
I think they have cohesive answers to those questions.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. But if you were to play sports, you'd also realize if your team sucks, it's hard to fix it in an afternoon.
Right, but isn't it?
But
also,
this movie supposes that you can do it in an afternoon.
But
I'll say this: the movie. I think you're right that the movie has answers for that. This movie has an obsession with the kids being responsible to and only themselves, which doesn't work for them in a myriad of ways.
Yeah.
So they need an adult to check them.
Yeah.
And that is in there. That's a part of the movie.
That is definitely a part of the movie. I don't know if I should restrain myself from asking the question I want to ask, but I'll put it out there. Don't feel like you have to answer it now. Is this an Aftermath sequel?
I think it is.
I think it is. Okay, we'll talk.
Not only that, I was very surprised to see this movie in the first 5-10 minutes set up the next movie. I couldn't believe that.
Like another 1978 movie that we've recently talked about. Subscribe to Patreon, everyone. Well, yes, you're absolutely right. I think it's an
So we both have Breaking Training at the top of our list, which means going to Japan by sheer virtue of the only other film left
the twofer, the
goes
couplet.
to the bottom.
Yeah, that's a couplet.
Yeah.
But
is it close for you? I personally don't think it's too close, but I do think it's closer than I ever thought it could be or should be or would be.
This comes down to what you value, and in the end, I'd rather watch a movie that has some authenticity versus one that exists in this kind of meta world between the movie and what's going on behind the scenes, and that's clearly,
absolutely
by making
that's Breaking Training
by making it so much about Ghost of Japan is so much about showbiz and the media that
and one man's quest to get on top of that heap.
Yeah, and it's sort of it goes into a weird sort of limbo between reality and media.
Yeah, the one thing about Japan is I kept thinking to myself, clearly one actor in particular was saying, okay, I'll be in your movie. Here are my stipulations. That's what the movie feels like.
I don't get any of that.
No?
You're talking about Tony Curtis, right?
Tony Curtis. I mean, it's so Curtis-centered.
I've seen him do that. I've seen Tony Curtis phoning it in, and I don't think this is this. This is that.
Oh, I don't think he's phoning it in. I'm just saying he said, let's focus on me. I want bits. I want things to do. Let me
He's an
be the
awfully
center.
big star, though. I think it's just.
I agree. I
think
mean, we're talking Spartacus. We're talking Some Like It Hot.
Yeah.
You know, he is Tony Curtis, but
I don't know. I don't think it's a vanity project.
Not at all.
I don't.
Because you have two movies that are, well, maybe not. I mean, obviously the first one has Mathau, but it's still it's a movie.
Apparently not to be.
The first two movies are two movies in which, for the most part, the kids are taking center stage.
Well, they have to in the second one because they don't have a lead actor for about half the movie.
I know. So
here
to have that be a departure in the third movie feels weird, because what I think most people loved about the Bad News Bears were the Bad News Bears. They liked the kids.
I mean, what you're saying is right. Somehow that doesn't equate to a vanity project for me. Like, I just think,
okay.
I don't know. It's like it's an old Hollywood way of doing things.
No, I agree with that.
I mean, that star system, and I just think it kind of meets in the middle. It's like we've got these kids.
There's one thing that I really love in that movie.
We've got this star who, sure, he's, veteran, but still can pack him in. I mean, he has some hits late on in his career, Boston Strangler, etc.
Right.
So he's still got something of a reputation he can play. And it just, I don't know, it feels like a happy medium. But I'd say,
right.
I don't know, I'm probably very susceptible to old-fashioned Hollywood-style entertainment in a way that...
No, yeah, I mean...
And I think that's what it's going for a lot of the time. But in another sense, like, it in the same way, obviously, and it's hard to separate this from what we now know about him, but, a few years later, The Cosby Show comes out. Bill Cosby builds a sitcom around him having semi-improvised conversations with small female children. And this kind of gets to that first, so...
Okay.
And I like that. I don't think, the rest of the sitcom suffered because there was too much of Cliff and Rudy. Like, I don't know. It's just, just entertainment to me. I don't know.
Okay, that's fine.
Maybe I am Marvin Lazar.
I'm just saying it crossed my mind a lot, but it doesn't make it detract from his interaction with the kids for me.
No. Basically what I'm telling you is I am Marvin Lazar. His worldview is mine, yes. Basically.
In your heart of hearts. All right, Tom, let's get to it. We'll start with Breaking Training. Is Breaking Training a good movie?
It's a good... If they didn't go with Better Call Saul, I'd say it was a great title for a Breaking Bad prequel. That's about all I know at the moment. Oh God, I really don't know. I really need your help. What do you go first, please? I can't. I know. I want you to get me out of trouble, and you want me to get you out of trouble, but I'm not going to get you out of trouble.
All right.
Because I don't know.
Okay, here's my Okay, wait. Here.
Now I've just thought of a wrinkle I didn't even think of that makes everything harder. Carry on.
Here's my dilemma. There are things that are terrible in this movie. And as I said earlier, normally for a movie made at this time, we might say, well, I'm not going to blame the movie. I'll blame the time it was made. But the choices are so direct and so intentional that I do blame the movie.
Yeah, I agree.
And that knocks the movie down, several pegs. But, at the core of this movie, like I said when I called it good, or when I called it the top of my list, there are things I recognize as storytelling in this movie.
Yeah, sure.
And there's enough of those for me to say it is a good movie, but barely.
Okay.
So that's where I sit.
I just scanned my notes. It's a bad movie, clearly. I don't know what I was talking about.
You just wanted me to go first. You laid your
no,
bear
no,
trap
it wasn't a trick.
so that you could.
I was just, I was getting seduced by my own rhetoric about. But then I realized if I am judging it against those 70s movies that I like, this isn't even on the map.
Oh well, no, of course not.
And there's definitely, I mean, there's enough wrong politically as you're talking about, but also at a filmmaking level, I think it's a bad film.
Okay.
I mean, I don't hate it.
No.
And I don't think it's a terrible film, but I think it's definitely on the bad side. There's too much.
Okay.
It's too much not working, I think, in the movie.
That's fine.
But it
You
definitely
could probably
has its
convince me
moments.
on. You probably could convince me on any other day, but today, by an ass hair, I'm saying it's a good movie.
Well, I already waxed, so
I didn't think of you as a waxer.
I definitely am not. No, it was for the metaphor only, not in real life.
Okay, good.
I didn't
So
think
now-
of you as a waxer. What a nice way to say, you hairy baboon.
No, I just think you're so confident. You'll just let it go, wherever it is. Take me as I am, world.
That's right. Just let the hair float away like the leaf in Forrest Gump. And now I've got myself into a bind because.
So that's what I was going to ask you, because you seem to like the next movie a little bit more, but you've already called the movie you ranked above it bad.
Yeah.
Does that mean Going to Japan is automatically a bad movie? Or is it good, but somehow not above Breaking
Well, I've
Training?
done that before. It's not
Yeah, I
unprecedented.
know, you're a maniac.
I think Back to the Future, and I can still partially remember the rationale for that, and it still kind of makes sense to me.
If you say so.
Okay, well, you think it's a bad movie, don't you?
I do.
Yeah.
I think it's too
This is
clumsy.
1978. This is 1978, though.
I think it's too clumsy and too weird
It's
and
it
too
is both
oddly
of those
focused
adjectives, yes.
for too long to be a good movie. But I'll tell having said that, at a certain point it starts winning me over.
It's bad.
Thank you.
I'm not saying it for your benefit. I'd happily disagree with you if I felt I could mount a case.
Oh, I know.
But I definitely it's hard to. This normally
It's too odd to be good.
Normally
I just want
helps.
normalcy to reign supreme.
No, this is probably the first time I felt that our format actually constrains what I want to say about the movie. Because it doesn't none of what I'm saying here captures how surprising
The feeling of watching it?
how surprising and surprisingly enjoyable this movie was at times. And Breaking Training is certainly surprising, and like you say, there was some good storytelling in it. But I at no point.
Yeah, but some of the surprises are unpleasant.
Some of the
like
surprises
really
are
unpleasant.
unpleasant.
Yeah.
Some of the storytelling is bad, and it's rarely enjoyable in a straightforward way.
Mm-hmm.
You always get a little bit of grit with your oyster.
A little tiny dollop of sand.
Yeah. God.
All right.
So, well, I mean, I'm fine with that because my instinct is they're both bad, but questions abound because what level are these kinds of films supposed to reach?
Mm-hmm.
But I think certainly, I don't think either of them quite get to the standard they should get to, given what they're trying to do. Yeah, I like that.
Okay.
That's I think
I think
a comedy drama.
I think
of the time.
one does what it's supposed to do.
Well, it's like I think Breaking Training is, if you judge it as like a comedy drama of the time, it's not hitting the high notes there.
Oh no, yeah.
So why do you think?
Maybe that's it. Maybe I'm just judging it as a baseball movie.
Oh, it's terrible. I mean, it's terrible as a baseball movie, surely.
But it does what it's supposed to do in the
But
end.
there's not. I mean, we're gonna have to have this. We're gonna have to have this Karate Kid conversation all over again. How much karate do you need in a karate movie? Versus how much tea ceremony? It's like.
It didn't bother me.
And Bad News Bears Goes to Japan's got a lot of baseball in it.
I think it has less baseball than you think it does.
No, I don't. It does not, sir.
It has.
I mean,
It has an
admittedly,
initial.
it gets you cut that with a bit of martial arts and wrestling,
I'll say.
but I don't think it's skimping on the baseball.
I think. Well, it certainly has more baseball than Breaking Training.
Yeah,
I have to cop to that for sure.
right. But you think the baseball is better used?
Yeah.
God, it's a long time before they get anywhere near a coaching session in that film.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the big drawbacks for me.
I agree.
We've got nowhere.
That's a problem. But I'm saying once it starts.
It made me also, just as a side note, both these films made me realize that in sports movies there was a time before Rocky and there was a time after. Sports movies were never the same after Rocky.
That's interesting.
I mean, it imbues so much of these two films, again, in totally different ways.
Yeah.
It feels like they're two different Rocky movies, but nonetheless, Rocky movies that haven't even been made yet. But it definitely feels like we changed our whole mindset about how to make sports movies after Rocky came out.
I mean, that's interesting to me, though.
Oh, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
I think I saw it. I mean, they mentioned.
Do you think Rocky gets that credit?
Sorry?
Do you think Rocky gets that credit?
Well, we certainly give it that credit. Whether the wider world does, I don't know, because anything to do with Sylvester Stallone,
we're in the bag for.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it. I don't think people quite realize that. Like, if you go back to a sports movie from the 40s or the 50s, you realize what's missing from the formula that Rocky added.
Mm-hmm.
Except, I mean, Rocky was drawing on those movies, but it turned it into something. It just packaged it differently, and now everyone packages it the same based on Rocky.
Maybe. But what's interesting is because Rocky's 76, right? And so is the Bad News Bears, the original. So they came out the same year.
Yeah. And it's definitely all part of the same movement towards grittier sports more socially realistic sports movies. Mm-hmm. Or has that always been I don't know enough about sports movies. Has that always been a genre that's fairly working class in nature? Because sports,
I don't know. It depends on. Yeah, it depends on. I think each movie is taken, on its own merits in that regard.
I don't know why Lenny Riefenstahl's Olympia's popping into my head. But that certainly wouldn't fit that model.
Shit.
Documentary about the Nazi Olympics.
I'll say. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Question for another day, maybe. We need more sports movies.
Yeah, we do. So what we've done, we've done Rocky.
We need more sports sequels.
We've done this. Have we done any other sports movies?
I don't think so.
Huh. Yeah, we should. And
How many?
Every time we do, it's Karate Kid.
Oh yeah.
Tangentially, and every time we do them, we comment. It's like, oh, sports are a great, great content for sequels because there's always a rematch or there's always another fight or another game.
Right.
So you can just keep going.
But it's like, I think of Karate Kid, Rocky, and the Bad News Bears. So many other sports movies are one-offs.
Mighty Ducks, you already mentioned that, right? There's a few of those.
Yeah, Mighty Ducks. There's a few of those. I mean, I'm trying to think of a football movie with sequels. I can't come up with one off the top of my head.
Wow.
Unless there's direct-to-video Varsity Blues.
That in itself is fascinating.
Yeah.
Why the hell aren't there, given how huge American football is?
Yeah.
Why the fuck is there not like 2 or 3 Fast and Furious style franchises following,
And you know what's weird is I don't
who also go into space.
As important as sports are in American culture, I don't know that Hollywood thinks of sports movies as the safest bets.
Which is weird because look at Top Gun.
That's weird,
look
right?
at Top Gun Maverick, which is essentially a sports movie. I mean, it's a war movie, but no, I mean it's war as sport, right?
Yes, I know what you mean.
And look how well that did.
Yeah.
People in Hollywood.
But you have to.
Hollywood's
that's
so
an entirely
stupid.
different example.
This is how stupid people in Hollywood are, right? I read an article today. I think it was on Deadline or one of those sites. Like the writer of the latest Ant-Man movie, talking about how surprised he was that the reviews for the film were so terrible. It's like, you fucking idiot.
Why was he surprised? What was the reasoning?
There was no reason. He just
said, I thought it was great.
Yeah,
I thought
exactly.
the script I wrote was brilliant.
That is literally what he said. He was like, I thought it went really well. All that stuff I wrote for Michelle Pfeiffer, I was like...
was fantastic.
Literally, I was just like, you really don't get it, do you?
Wow. All right.
Yeah. So maybe that's it. It's like Hollywood doesn't know what's good for it.
Maybe.
Because when I go into a sports movie, I want to give it the benefit of the doubt, because I know that like Rocky, they're dumb movies in some respects, but they're very enjoyable and they win you, like they literally win you over.
Yeah, they can win you over for sure
with the right treatment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nobody involved in Hoosiers thought Hoosiers was a good movie, and then it came out. And everybody loved it, and everybody was completely shocked. Gene Hackman used to talk on set about, yeah, we're making this piece of shit. I mean, that's probably not a surprise coming from Gene Hackman, but...
Did he think he was still doing Quest for Peace?
Maybe.
Yeah. Interesting. Basketball? Is there a basketball? Apart from Space Jam? Is there a basketball?
Well, Hoosiers is a basketball movie.
I know, I understand, but there's no Hoosiers 2 Hoop Dreams.
Right. I mean, maybe you could... it's an interesting question if the LeBron James is a remake or a sequel.
It's definitely...
Feels more like a remake,
I've marked its card for...
I don't know.
I've marked its card for a watch-along, that's for sure.
Yeah. All right. Anything else?
No.
All right.
I think
well,
with this, I think you... everything
we've done noble
everything
work
to say about this movie you have to do on a scene-by-scene basis. Because...
Yes.
Particularly if you haven't seen these films, and they are both on HBO Max, at least as of recording. They don't look
as of now.
They don't look like they're disappearing anytime soon. If you haven't seen these movies and you're judging them just on the titles and what the movie's about, that gives you absolutely no indication as to what happens in these films.
Right. Oh no.
So definitely.
All right.
If you sometimes it's funny just to hear us talk about movies that you haven't seen. With this one, definitely watch along.
Yeah, I agree.
Because you're going to hear some stuff come out of our mouths, and I don't want to be responsible for it.
You're going to be dumbfounded.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want you to know that the movie's making me have this conversation.
Yes.
I'm not
Absolutely.
bringing it up of my own volition.
Please don't put us in the penalty box. Different sport, but still a sports analogy.
Although we will make a devoted effort to not use the same terminology
Yes.
as is being used in the film. That's an Everything sequel promise.
That's a promise. I can't.
We're better people than that.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, tell us what you think. Do you have Breaking and Training at the top of your lists? Watch these movies to find out if it is.
Of the Bad News Bears sequels, obviously.
Yes.
If you have it higher on a general movie list, let us know as well.
Oh, please.
I've already made the 5 Easy Pieces comparison. Maybe I'm not alone.
You're going to have to find us and let us know. Send us an email to everythingsequel@gmail.com or find us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter and let us know what you think. All right. We both have Breaking Training at the top. I say Breaking Training is barely good and Going to Japan is bad. Tom says they're both bad. Say goodbye to everybody, Tom.
Crabs? What crabs? Oh, crabs.
Yeah, there is a familiar old Hollywood.
Speaking of old Hollywood, did you ever own or rent those Laserlight VHSs that had introductions from Tony Curtis on them?
No.
They're really hard to track down online. I had one for His Girl Friday and Gunga Din, both Cary Grant movies. I think basically they gave him the Cary Grant movies because
I know they're both Cary Grant.
I know,
movies.
but I'm making the point.
Condescend to
but
me,
he
you
is
asshole.
also not Cary Grant, yet he's famous for doing a Cary Grant impression in the film. So basically, they were like, "Well, he can come on. He can do that one anecdote he has about meeting Cary Grant, and Cary Grant saying, "Oh, don't talk like that," and but like it's just like there. Where I talked about, the best part of those Laserlight introductions. This is way later than Goes to Japan. As at the end of the introduction, he goes, "I'll be back after the movie." I was like, "Well, I'm not coming back. I have the option to turn off." And
you're on your own, sir.
And I wonder whether this was like whose misunderstanding of the medium was this?
Yes.
That people could actively turn off if they wanted to and take the tape out.
Well, wait, we're not done yet.
I got one more story about Cary Grant.
On that note, we say goodbye and stay tuned for the Bad News Bears in Breaking Training.
Did you know that the Everything Sequel